All right. Welcome to Random Vets Real Stories. Today's guest is retired Lieutenant Commander Dalyn Dunn, U.S. Navy. How are you doing?
Good, Tim. Yourself?
Good. Hey, we're going to go through some questions and um, just find out a little about you and your story. And here we go. Where are you originally from?
So I claim Craig, Colorado is my hometown. So it's the northwest corner of Colorado, 50 miles from the Wyoming border and 50 miles from Utah. So as of the middle of the eighth grade, that's where my family settled, and I finished out my high school year.
Okay. How would you describe your childhood?
Um, I think it was actually pretty good. My dad was a union pipe fitter, so we were always moving. I think last I counted that I could determine was I attended 20 different schools before the eighth grade. So my dad took the family wherever we went, wherever the union sent us. So always busy, always moving. Not a lot of chance to make friends, but other than that, it was mostly outdoors. My dad was a big outdoorsman, so I liked being out there hunting, fishing. Colorado definitely fit into that and what we wanted to do. Wasn't too much on the mechanic side, like auto mechanics, but that was kind of where I dove in.
All right. Sounds kind of like my childhood as far as being outdoors. I, I enjoyed it a lot.
Absolutely.
All right. Describe your parents.
Just touch real briefly on my father there, my father that adopted me. So outdoorsman, pipe fitter for the union, which is one of the reasons we ended up in Craig, Colorado. A small town east of Craig is Hayden, Colorado, and they were building a power plant, coal power plant to supply Southern California with electricity. So that's why we moved there. That's where the job was, and that's where we stayed. So mother, not a college graduate. She started college, ended up getting pregnant with me. My real dad actually said, "Don't count me in," and left. So I left her on her own. She had to quit college, and she was a waitress for many years in many different restaurants. So definitely didn't live across the tracks, but we live right next to the tracks. So not a lot of money. I'm the oldest of four kids, so money was always tight, but we made it. So it's all good.
Oh yeah. All right. All right. So you've told me that your father was a pipe fitter. So obviously you didn't grow up in a military family. Was there someone that influenced you to join the service?
No, really not. I mean, I knew my grandparents and on my mother's side, my great grandparents, but my dad served 4 years in the Army. He was part of a general's staff, mostly driving the Jeep, is what he said that he did, and various other duties as assigned. But really, no family members that influenced me or friends of family members uh, that influenced me to join the military. Um, I think the one thing that kind of hooked me on the Navy, even though later on we'll talk about it, but the one thing that hooked me on the Navy was the TV show McHale's Navy with Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway. I love that show.
Yeah.
The camaraderie that was with them, even though it was kind of a comedy show, but that was all about me. I loved it. So I'd say that was probably my biggest influence.
Okay. Did you go in right after high school?
I did. I raised my hand on graduation day from high school, and I went in the delayed entry program for 1 month, and then shipped out on June 26, 1980.
Cool. So that so you entered service in 1980. So you're a few years ahead of me. What jobs did you perform while serving?
So I was everything from my enlisted rate was AMH. Now it's all AM. So whether you're an S or H, it's all AM. But so everything from a crew chief to a mechanic to a maintenance chief to maintenance material control officer of a squadron to assistant AIMD officer on a carrier, and then program office. I was a program officer for a support equipment office. So quite a few different things, varied career over 28 years and a few months. So.
Okay. So yeah, that was you're moving into a future question, but we'll touch back on it here in a second. Describe uh, your your commands.
Sure, I can list the commands, tell a little bit about what I did with each one. So my first command right out of A school there in Millington, Tennessee was the Blue Angels, Naval Flight Demonstration Squadron. And we can get into that a little bit, Tim, if you want, on
Sure.
how I got to be there.
Yeah.
So Naval Flight Demonstration Squadron, I guess they were testing a new methodology for personnel to be part of the squadron. So limited number of personnel. Mostly you have to be hand selected to go to the squadrons. They tried something different because they were having trouble with finding qualified candidates to apply. And also once they actually did, they were having trouble with personnel bringing some bad habits from the fleet to the squadron. So it was kind of tainting it. So their methodology or their thought pattern was, let's try somebody that's not already tainted by the fleet. We'll get them right out of A school. They're definitely easy to train, going to absorb the knowledge and so on and so forth. So they wanted an AMH and they wanted an AE. So it was myself and John Devine. We both graduated top of our class there out of A school. They offered us the option, do you want to go to the Blue Angels? Me, myself, not being close to Navy squadrons or, water, I didn't know who it was. I actually had to ask some people. Internet really didn't exist at that time, but I was like, yeah, I'm on board. Let's go. So went to the Blue Angels. I was airframes technician at the time. AMS 1 Keith Holbert was my LPO, which we can talk about later. Was there for a few years, went into the line shack and was a crew chief on the number 7 aircraft with the Blue Angels and enjoyed my time. So spent just over 4 years of Blue Angels.
Okay. Yeah, I hear those are pretty demanding tours.
It was really demanding. A lot of travel. Definitely, it's all spit shine and interaction with people from various parts of the country constantly. So you are the Navy's ambassador out there to everybody. So, there's definitely a smile, a handshake, be professional. It's everything that you would hope for. My last year there, I traveled a lot. I was on the road over 200 days by my choice because I knew it was my last year. So anyway, I enjoyed it immensely. Got to meet a lot of people. Got to do a lot of things, that I never thought I would. So as I said, with the number 7 aircraft, it was also the aircraft that we flew media personnel before the air shows, the local newspaper, local radio, local television. And also sometimes we had the opportunity to fly Hollywood stars, Dolly Parton, so on and so forth. So
Oh yeah.
that was part of my job, was to provide them their briefings, to strap them into the aircraft, so they would get that experience. But it was all very good. It seemed to go by very fast. So
Right, y'all were flying A4s then, correct?
we were, and so we took the TA4 2-seater up there, wherever we went. So usually roll into the air show site the day before the the actual aircraft and the rest of the crew arrive. So make sure the hotel's set up, cars are ready, rental cars, make, any last minute changes from the air show coordinators. So yeah.
Did you fly in the back seat with the pilot to the air show destination?
I did absolutely. And yeah, that's an experience in itself. So I had to get air crew qualified down here in Pensacola. Swim tests. I went through that in January. Man, it was cold.
Yeah.
Out there in the bay. But yeah, very physically demanding in that regard. And then also, so myself and another enlisted member were responsible for that aircraft. Everything that happened to that aircraft, we're responsible for. We reported to the pilot. So working on the aircraft, I helped whoever it was that was doing anything to that aircraft, whether it's changing an engine, phase inspection, whatever it was. So myself and my partner, we alternated on air shows that we went to and keeping the aircraft clean and fit. So that was it. It's like, your own Corvette or whatever you want to call it. It's like, there it is. So it was a privilege. I excelled there. I was turn qualified. I was taxi qualified because we needed to taxi the aircraft. I was an instructor for taxi qualification. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty great first tour.
It was. It was incredible. And I knew that, the rest of the Navy wasn't like that, but to start out at that level and get that training. So I think it helped in some regards. There's a lot of great people that were hand selected to be there.
So you would have been 18 to 22 years old while you were there?
That's correct.
All right. Yeah. Running around in jets and firing them up and all that stuff and taxiing. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had to taxi the aircraft every time we changed the brake pucks because they had this little coating on the brakes and you had to burn it off by taxiing to make sure that when the aircraft were used for the flight demonstration, one of the key points was stopping at the end of the runway, them getting in position. They need to actually run the engines up to full power to take off. So we wanted to make sure that there was no slipping. They didn't bump into each other even before they got off the ground or anything like that. So it was absolutely crucial.
Okay. Where did you go to from there?
So from there, I went to VF-32. So Fighter Squadron 32, flying F-14As there at Oceana. Probably one of my favorite tours. As I mentioned earlier, Master Chief Keith Holbert, that we know, he was in the Blue Angels. He was my LPO, but he went to VF-32, as you may know, Tim.
Yeah, that's where Dalyn and I crossed paths. Dalyn was my shop supervisor in airframes.
Absolutely.
VF-32.
Absolutely. So I called up Keith from the Blues when I talked to detailer. He gave me a choice of 3 sets of orders you're going to see. So I said, okay. So I called up Keith and said, hey, I see you've got an opening. Can you tell me a little about the squadron? Let me try to get some information. I don't know really what an F-14 is and so on and so forth. And he says, come on up here. We'll get you all set up, get you going, teach you all about the F-14 and go from there. So I said, okay, at least let me go somewhere where I know somebody. And so off to Oceana I went. So VF-32, Tim, you and I met. We met actually I met quite a few people, Corey and Scott Derrick and so on and so forth. And that list is long.
Yeah,
Barnes
definitely.
And Castillo and just on and lots of folks. So that was one of my favorite tours. A lot of camaraderie in that squadron. We worked hard, played hard for sure.
Yeah.
And lots of great ports of call, in the Med and such. But enjoyed that one immensely. I learned a tremendous amount. But and Tim, I'm sure much like you, I absolutely fell in love with the F-14.
Oh yeah.
It would sometimes beat us down so hard, but there was always a solution. And Everybody in the squadron seemed to help each other. There was really no fighting. Of course, there's always kidding around and, just with the other with the other shops, or even our sister squadron, VF-14 at that time. So
Right.
there's always some jabs and stuff. We went on deployment. We go on workups. Who got their aircraft off the deck first? There's always competition. It didn't matter what it was. So.
Oh yeah. So how long was your tour in 32?
So I was there from 85 to 89. So I did 4 years there. It was only a 3-year tour, but then Bupers came out and said, everybody that was an AM, you got to do an extra year, because the rotation was kind of off for everybody. There was just nobody to cycle back in. So it's like, all right, another 12 months. From there, I went over to AIMD Oceania.
Okay.
So figuring, okay, one less move I had to do. So it's basically just walk across the street and down the road, 100 yards, and I'm there. So went over there as first class. I wasn't the shop supervisor at AIMD Oceania. They had the hydraulics shop, then they had the strut shop, which worked on all the struts for the different aircraft. So the F-14, of course, wheel brake shop, corrosion shop, so on and so forth. So I wasn't the LPO there to begin with. So they put me over in the strut shop, start getting experience with that. There was an airframes bulletin that was out that they were cycling all the struts through and checking for cracks in various areas. There was an issue there that we won't get into, but so it kind of got familiar with that and such, and seemed to do pretty well. And then I was there just a short amount of time, and learned that I was selected to be a chief pit officer.
Okay.
And so AMD Oceania only had one billet for an AM chief, and it was already being filled by another chief that had just gotten there. So they said, all right, you're going somewhere else. So detailer said, okay, we'll get you through, initiation, chief's initiation, everything else, and where do you want to go after that? So looked at what he had to offer. And really, the only thing that was close was over in Norfolk. So skip up the road from Oceania, went up to Norfolk, and that was VAW 120, the E2 RAG squadron. So
Okay.
I was like, this is going to be different, going from F-14s to E2s. So it's going to have some challenges. I don't know anything about E2s whatsoever, but in my capacity, it's rely heavily on personnel, the teams, to actually get the job done and get it knocked out. So that's where I went.
All right. How long were you over there? And how long did you stay at AMD? Was that a year or two, or?
Yeah, the AMD Oceania, I was there, like I said, 13 months.
Okay.
And then I was at VAW 120 for 2 years. I got there. They had a rotation right off the bat. Came in and talked to the master chief that was in charge. He says, hey, the first 6 months, all my new chiefs were in rotation with the wing that's here, that they go to the support equipment pool and manage the support equipment pool for 6 months. We've got, that's, checking out NC8s, hydraulic jennies, tow tractors, so on and so forth. So they run the pool. I said, okay, I get it. New kid on the block. Just fresh anchors and everything else. So I went over there and ran it. Time was getting close for me to rotate out there. Another squadron was going to have their chief come in, take it. So I went back over to VAW 120. Spoke to the master chief and the maintenance master chief, and asked them, I said, what was your plans for me coming back over there? And he said, well, we really don't know yet. We really haven't got a plan, and we'll figure it out, once you actually get back over here. And I said, okay, I hear what you're saying, but we really need to come up with a plan. I don't want to walk in and not have hey, here's what you need to be doing. There's your job, so on and so forth. I'm not, I don't want to just float around. So I pressed them not to drag out the conversation. And they were having problems with their night check, basically getting work done. Their night check chief was a good chief, but he just wasn't strong enough to be actually getting the job done. They needed aircraft. They were a RAG. They needed to train air crew They had to get qualified. They were behind. They were walking in with a small handful of aircraft ready for the next day's operations, like 2 or 3 of the 20 aircraft. They were also training CODs, COD pilots. So
Right.
C2 aircraft and their pilots, they needed to get trained. They need to have aircraft up. So the last time I went in and talked to the mass chief and the MMCO, said, hey, what's the job? What are we going to be doing? Well, I'm getting ready to come over here in a week. And they said, we still don't know. I said, I'll tell you what, we'll make this deal. I'm going to be your new night check maintenance chief. Okay. That's it. Cut and dry. Okay. So we'll have aircraft up to meet the flight schedule the following day. Make me your night check maintenance chief. And they're like, you really want that job? I said, yeah, it's going to be a tough road, but yeah, I want that job. So that's what it was. Came in there, took over the night check maintenance chief. And it was different for the E2 maintenance folks because you have an F-14 maintainer running night check.
Right.
And those of us that are in F-14, we know how that goes. It's day check and stay check, and we will have aircraft ready. So
right.
It was a long road. I bucked heads with a few supervisors, but the maintenance officer, the mass chief, MMCO would come in the morning sometimes, still have night check there, burning back ends, making sure radar's up and ready to go. Still got air crew qualified. So that's the way I ran. So the last, the year and a half that I was actually in the squadron, not in the pool, that's what I was doing. I was night check maintenance chief. So
did you enjoy it?
I did. I learned a lot about the E2. Again, a lot of great folks. I think they learned a different way of doing business, setting priorities, getting the job accomplished. I think that worked out really well for them. I don't know that they'd ever want another F-14 guy running with me. But hey, that's just the way it was. So,
was their flight time to maintenance hours a lot better than the Tomcat?
A little bit. My last recollection for them, it was 38 hours to 1 flight hour. Now, as well as I do, in 32, we were over 55 man hours to 1 flight hour. Flying the F-14A, we know, but it was way up there. There was a lot of maintenance. Seems like every time we turned around, we're doing an airframes bulletin or airframes change or making some bracket for something or whatever it might be. So
yeah. So where did you go when you left there?
So I left VAW 120 in 92. I went over to VF 14. I went over to the other side. So VF 14. So I was there from 92 to 95. I rolled in there as chief petty officer. Figured out, talked to them, what's the job I need to be doing while I'm here. So they wanted me to start being their QA chief. So QA CPO. So I was like, okay, I've been a CDI and everything else. Never been a QAR. I've never been in the quality assurance piece as far as in charge of it. But I was like, okay, let's see what this is all about. Had been on the receiving end, QA inspections, and various monitoring methods and such. So I knew the responsibility. But so QA CPO, I walked in there, took over that job, did that real well. Working on my safer flight qualifications for the F-14, so I could be a maintenance chief behind the desk for the F-14 and work that angle. So it's quality assurance chief petty officer. Finally got moved over to as far as being a maintenance chief petty officer, and also was filling in as their airframes chief petty officer for a little while. They had trouble finding one to fill that spot. So during my time there as maintenance chief, decided that was going to apply for the LDO program. So myself and another couple of chief petty officers were going to apply, and we did. So Didn't make LDO, the LDO program, the first time that I submitted my package for it, but I did make it the second time that I submitted.
That's
So
good. How
a little
many
bit different.
deployments did you do at 32 before
So
you
go ahead, Tim.
before you went over to VF 14?
So I did 2 deployments with 32. I did
Okay.
2 deployments with 14.
Okay. Yes. If you're watching this and you're not familiar with the military, the Navy does a rotation of sea duty and shore duty, is what they call it. So, um, Dalyn's VF 32, and then um, the VAW and the AIMD tours were shore duty, and then he's back in VF 14 on sea duty. All right, so you can continue. I'll leave you
Yeah,
alone.
no, it's fine, Tim. Absolutely. No, I appreciate it. So did 2 cruises there with VF-14. Found out, as I said, I got selected for the LDO program. So our MMCO at that time with VF-14 was Don Bazard, Lieutenant Don Bazard. Great guy, hard-nosed guy, very smart, very appreciative of everything that he taught me as far as the MMCO responsibilities, things to watch for, weight and balance, which is a whole nother school just for how to determine weight and balance for an aircraft, and also log books and so on and so forth. So lots of things. Maintenance chief is great. MMCO is just one step a little bit different. So knew him knowing that I was going to be selected as an LDO, and then proceeding on. So he wanted to give me that background. So as luck would have it, my tour with VF-14 culminated with my defrocking as a chief petty officer and putting on ensign bars as an LDO. So right at the end of 1995, October 95. So that's when I actually put on LDO. So great ceremony. The squadron did a fantastic job, way more than I asked them to do, but they repainted an aircraft with my name on the canopy at ceremony. Chief McClatchy was my person to render the first salute to me as an LDO. And I, of course, gave him a silver dollar, which is Navy tradition. He still has it. I talked to him earlier this year. Great guy.
Yeah.
So Rich McClatchy. Quite a few people there that I knew, and held the ceremony right there in Hangar 200. So old stomping
Okay.
grounds.
All right. So now you're commissioned. Where do
I'm
you head
commissioned.
to for VF 14?
Yeah. So as luck would have it, spoke to LDO. We'll call them detailers for this piece. But anyway, he said first tour for LDO is straight off the bat. You're going back to sea duty. So back to back sea duty. I just finished up with F-14s. I need to go to knife and fork school down in Pensacola, learn how to, I guess we call it knife and fork school, operate as an officer, go through that school, the doctrine, the etiquette, so on and so forth. So came down here to Pensacola, spent 2 months going through knife and fork school, finished up, and I chose to go to VF-31 out in Miramar. So I looked at it as, all right, I'm a brand new officer. I was like, let me approach this 2 ways. He had an F-18 squadron, VF-31, and he had a ship that the LDO detailer was trying to fill. I said, I'll take the F-14 squadron. I said, at least let me get into a place where I know the aircraft rather than learn the job and learn the aircraft. I know the aircraft, after doing 32 and 14, and being behind the desk as main chief. So at least in that regard, I don't have like both feet in the grave. Let me only have one. Then all I got to do is learn about whatever job they're going to give me. So that was it. I headed out to Miramar, VF-31 there in January or February of 96. The wife at that time Tina and family, they wanted to go with me, even though we knew when we went out there that VF-31 was re-home porting back to Oceana after the upcoming cruise in '96. I said, "You sure you don't want to just stay here? I mean, we had a place, a house, kids are in school, so on and so forth. I'll just go out there. I mean, 6 months of my year out there, I'm on deployment. So, I mean, you sure you want to go?" Yep, we're going out there. I said, "Okay, here we go, cross country," and took everybody west and set up out there. Got there to VF-31, expected to be their MCO, material control officer, kind of overseeing the supply department, the material, make sure we get everything, so on and so forth. Got there, went over to the fighter wing, told them who I was, they welcomed me aboard, told me where the squadron was, it was just which hangar, so on and so forth, and who to ask for. So went over the squadron check-in, so on and so forth. Their hangars were much like ours. Went up on the second deck. They had 2 stores. Worked my way around, met Master Chief Bond. At that time, he was their maintenance Master Chief, and met a lieutenant that was there as their MMCO. They were coming down the hallway. Master Chief Bond, I introduced myself to him. He said, "You're the guy that we've been waiting on." He turned to that lieutenant and said, "You're no longer our MMCO." He looked at me and pointed and says, "You're our new MMCO." I said, "Okay, I'm on board. So let's see what we can do." So that really caught me off guard, but I was up for the challenge. And thankfully, Don Bazard helped me out a lot with the knowledge of what's required of the MMCO. And so I think we did pretty well. VF-31 was, I get there, they were in the midst of doing 2 major avionics changes to all the squadron aircraft before we went on deployment. So we had Nate up there 24 hours a day. There always had to be somebody there kind of overseeing it because we were shortly going to be on deployment. So in a matter of 5 months, we were going to be on deployment. And a lot of work to be done. So we were getting outfitted, this being F-14Ds, we were getting outfitted with lantern pods, and we were also getting the ASFA, the anti-jamming fixes on the front of the wings. Well, not the wings, but actually the glow vane area. So those were 2 changes that were going on. Plus, still keeping everybody qualified, air crew, fly-in, hot pumps, night quals, getting, as you and I both know, right before cruise, I mean, there's a lot of activity. You're still doing a lot of workups. You're still doing a lot of nighttime flying and keeping everybody's quals up. It's probably enough talk for me on that subject for a minute, Tim.
So you spent a year or so there and then went right back to Oceana?
We did. So it was interesting in that regard. The plan was to immediately come off the cruise and everybody heads east. You got 30 days to get to Oceana, get established, and you're back at work. Okay, so that was the plan. So here's some interesting things that actually had to happen. So if you remember correctly, there was, when we got on deployment, about halfway through cruises, we would have the USO come on and various personnel trying to get people reestablished with going home, your family, and, get reacquainted with the wife and the kids, So there were some changes in that regard. We brought people on board the entire cruise to help out our personnel with getting their house sold, getting moved, personnel, school systems, make sure vehicles were up to speed to make a 3,000-mile trip across Oceania. If they couldn't drive, had more than one car, are you doing a U-Haul, you doing a Diddy move, or you can have the military move you, do you have storage unit you need to empty out? So all those logistics, we had personnel on board the entire time trying to help out the entire squadron. This was air crew, support personnel, maintainers, everybody was going. So pardon me. Each branch officer was in charge of their branch. So, the airframes work center had their branch officer working with them, and then the various division officers. So, as the MMCO, my biggest piece was to help out the entire maintenance department and make sure that we could do it. Prior to cruise, you may remember we had always sent an advance debt to make sure the spaces were ready and, bring the squadron in. So here's the weird one. Actually, I'd have two advanced debts. One to Miramar, because they were definitely flying into Miramar, their old home port. They were going to get gas, see their wives and children, and get right back in their planes the next day and fly them to Oceana. Me keeping my fingers crossed, nothing broke when they landed in Miramar, and nothing broke on the way out to Oceana. So I also had an advanced debt in Oceana. Had to prepare spaces, get ready for us, our new home. Work with the air wing and the actually hangar personnel as far as turnover of spaces and so on and so forth. So challenging. We did well. We had everybody get across country that was supposed to in a timely manner. I had one issue with an accident. Bad road conditions, nobody hurt. It's just an accident. Had to figure out another way to get that person, the rest of the way, right, and their family. But everything from as a Divo and Brancho, you're responsible for your personnel to make sure you check their tires. I mean, a lot of people didn't know how to check tires, maintenance. Are you going to be able to make it 3,000 miles? Or I highly recommend you sell this vehicle here, right, take your other one or whatever it might be, or figure out a way to get you there. So it went well. And, a lot of good planning and got everybody there. So Strike Fighter Wing, we're there. I'm back in my old stomping grounds, Oceana. Different way of doing business than the West Coast. I'd always heard there was a difference between the East Coast and the West Coast. Actually, definitely saw that when I was on both sides. Even though I was only out at Miramar a little bit of time, we still went through inspections, pre-cruise inspections of the aircraft, make sure all the screws are tight on the aircraft, just on and on and on. But did well. Tried to ramp up the squadron in preparation for Oceana. All the things that we were going to have to go through and stuff. The CAG 3 did well. Trying to help us out and get us going, giving us as much leeway as possible. I will say this, that since I was rehome porting the squadron to the East Coast, there were some people that did not want to rehome port. So if they were within a year of either retirement or them transferring, they had the choice of not rehome porting. So one of those was my maintenance Master Chief, Master Chief Bond I mentioned earlier. So he was retiring, didn't want to go east, and that was enough. So I needed a maintenance Master Chief. So called around to see who was available at Oceana. Spoke to detailers. John Trissini, Master Chief John Trissini was available. I called him up, spoke to him, and asked him to come on board as maintenance Master Chief. I knew him in various other squadrons. He was over at 101, if I remember correctly. And he said, absolutely, I'll come on board. So we'd worked together well on various other projects. We knew each other in other squadrons. So he had a few people he wanted to bring on board as chiefs and so on and so forth. So I said, yeah, let's do it. So I will say, Tim, that F-14D, going back to your man hours discussion, it was, I wish everybody could have had an F-14D. It was the best aircraft of the F-14s. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I love them all, but I mean, maintenance man hours, it's just unusual. You have aircraft coming back, you have 3 or 4 birds come back. No airframes gripes, no IWT gripes, no nothing.
Wow.
The light bulbs out on whatever it might be, or their map lights out, whatever. Okay, we can handle that. Or they dropped an ink pen in the cockpit. It's the normal FOD things, but yeah, it was just mind-boggling. Everything that we wanted fixed, power and everything else, and the avionics system, AUG 15 instead of the AUG 9, it was truly incredible. So,
Did you do a East Coast cruise with VF-31?
did not. So that was the interesting piece. So I was trying to work it with the CAG. I said, it's the MMCL. I said, I know we're getting, ready to work up for our next deployment, so on and so forth. And we'd seen the boat schedule for all the workups, to come out there. So my piece to the CAG maintenance officer was, hey, can we just go ahead and stay on the East Coast? We'll do our workups out here on the East Coast. There's enough ships here they're deploying, and we can send out personnel on the ship to take care of our planes, hot switches and hot pumps and air crew and so on and so forth, until it gets time that you feel it's time for us to come out to the actual ship. Because it was a matter of, you had to transport all your equipment 3,000 miles, truckloads, semi-truckloads, personnel, pallets, you're packing up C9 pallets if you couldn't get the trucks, and just on and on. It was just, and you're doing this every 6 weeks because there was another workup. So convinced him. I said, all right, don't have to come out until Testa, which is usually a few months prior to the actual cruise. You need to come out and integrate yourself into the squad, into the wing at that time, and we'll go from there. So that's what we did. Worked out real well. I would usually send a crew of 20 maintainers, like one from every shop, an airframe or whatever it might be, to be on the East Coast ship for our East Coast qualifications. So they go out on the Ike, or we'd bounce on the Ike, or we'd bounce on, whatever, the America, or whatever ship was available, whoever was trying to do their workups. They welcomed us, whoever the F-14 squadron was there. That was usually somebody was there bouncing also, so they would host us. So that worked out real well. There was no, it's them or anything like that. So,
Right.
So, yeah, so it was not something new. I mean, the EA-6B squadron up in Whidbey was doing the same thing. They were bouncing off the East Coast instead of coming all the way down for their workups. They could do the same thing. So I was thankful the CAGMO and CAG actually let us work that out instead of doing the wasting time, being away from family, just dragging us cross country for a 2-week debt. It was just painful,
Right.
just a bounce. So, no, that worked out well. And then finished out there in 99. Yeah, 99. And that was the end of the sea duty for that, and went over to, went down to Pensacola. That was my next shore duty. So after back-to-back sea duties, went down to Pensacola for shore duty. Went down to Chief Naval Education and Training, the Admiral. So that was the big command in charge of all the schools for naval education, everything from air crew school to boot camp in Great Lakes. So they were in charge of all the naval training.
They had moved all the A schools to Pensacola by that time, correct?
They were in the process. Almost all of them were. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Slowly shutting down the boot camps. Orlando was on its way being shut down. San Diego, of course, had already been turned over, to the Marines and stuff. So that was already set. Pretty much established in Great Lakes as the only boot camp. But so came down here to CNET. So basically a staff member. Went to a work center, I guess we'll call it a work center, or a part of CNET that was called SHOP, so schoolhouse operations. So that's where I was. Worked for a Navy captain in there. I was one of a few officers that were in charge of overseeing the operations of various Navy schools. So basically, except for Great Lakes and Orlando and a few other intricacies, I had quite a few of the schools. I was responsible for overseeing the operations and resolving issues for schools east of the Mississippi. So everything from Groton, Connecticut, the Submariner schools up there, to Air Crew School in Pensacola to the Postal Clerk School in South Carolina. That's a joint school with the Army. So I was responsible for visiting each of those schools quarterly, trying to help them resolve their issues, where they needed personnel, where they needed equipment, what it was that I could help them get, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, report back to the Navy captain, both verbally and in writing. And then,
So how long was that tour?
so it was a 3-year tour. I left there in 02.
They didn't cut you short.
They didn't cut me short. They didn't cut me short. So, and then it was back to sea duty for that one. So you'll like this next one. So went from there to Harry S. Truman, AIMD officer, IM3 division officer. So I was going to AIMD. So
Okay.
instead of being the air wing on board, now I'm, actual AIMD. I am one person within one of the departments on the ship. So ship's company. So got there in 02 to the Harry S. Truman, and I left there in 05. So I did two deployments on the Harry S. Truman. So it was different. As I said, I was IM3 division officer there, and then towards the end, about 6 months before I left, selection for lieutenant commanders came out, and I was selected for lieutenant commander. So, as luck would have it, the assistant AIMD officer was rotating out, and so they didn't quite have anybody at that time to rotate in. There was a delay for the replacement, so the AIMD officer, Commander Kennedy, put me in as the assistant AIMD officer, even though I didn't have my lieutenant commander on yet. I was definitely already selected for it, so he was kind of prepping me up. So teach me a little bit about the duties, AIMD officer, assistant, what is it, so on and so forth. And then interaction with the ship, So I'm not just a division officer now. Now I'm representing the department, the assistant for the department, So engineering, AIMD, supply department, all of them being departments.
Right.
So going to all those ship meetings and damage control and personnel who's where they're not supposed to be during general quarters and just all of it. So it was interesting in that regard. Not a horrible tour, but not my favorite. No.
Right. So it was a big change from being stationed at a naval air station and being ship's company.
There is. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So 02 to 06, pardon me, 02 to 05. And we went into Portsmouth for a mini overhaul of the ship for 6 months. We're at Portsmouth, so duty on board the ship with all the contractors, and they did some work on that ship. It was like stuff I'd never seen. So bulkheads getting cut out so they could bring new equipment in, and then re-weld it, and just fire watches and retiling the up, the 03 level, just on and on and on. So we were there in the shipyard for 6 months, and then getting back out and getting underway. So it was an experience.
All right. So are you getting close to retirement there, or?
I was. So left there 02. Pardon me, 05. I left there, talked to the detailer. He says, hey, I got one job for you, Lieutenant Commander. I need you to go up to Pax River, Maryland. There's a program office up there. I need, they're looking for a Lieutenant Commander to fill it. And I said, told our detailer at that time, I said, I have no desire to go to Pax River. It's up in Maryland. There is nothing up there for me. I want nothing to do with that. And I pleaded for a year. I asked Commander Kennedy. He called on my behalf. Anybody I could get to listen to me, call up there. I said, I'll go back to studio. I said, George Washington's getting ready to pull in. I said, I'll just hop across the pier. I said, I'll take over there. I'll be their assistant and the officer. Not a problem. Nope. You're going to Pax River. You're going to Pax River. I was like, there's nothing up there for me. And so I resigned to it. Nobody could convince him otherwise. I resigned to it. I said, fine, I'll go up to Pax River and see what this is all about. So there it was in 05. I go up to Pax River and Anita, my wife, she stayed in Virginia Beach. She's a federal employee. She stayed there, and I commuted back and forth to Pax River every weekend for 3 years. So,
Wow.
yeah. So 200 miles each way. So come down on a Friday, go back on a Sunday afternoon. So, still had a house down there, still need to take care of numerous other things. As I said, she was a federal employee. She was still working there in the Ocean area. That puts miles on a vehicle.
Oh, yeah, you'll wear one out doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a small little place up there that I lived during the week. That was mine. So rent up there was outrageously expensive in the Pax River area. So Pax River, if nobody's been there, it's 60 miles south of the DC Beltway. It's down in one of the fingers of the Maryland, so southern Maryland. So this is NavAir. That's where they wanted me to go, to Pax River. The program office was PMA 260, so that's where I went. So learned a lot there at NavAir. So a quick historical, NavAir was up at Crystal City, which is Alexandria, Virginia, and they moved out there just because they were getting too big and needed space and so on and so forth. So back there in, I think it was year 1999, they moved to Pax River, Maryland, and got set up there. So Pax River used to be only the test squadron area for test squadron, new aircraft, and so on and so forth. So that was their main focus. But anyway, so NavAir came in there. And so NavAir in its piece has various program offices for various things. H-60 aircraft have a program office. The F-14 has a program office. And in that program office is various officers, support personnel, enlisted to support the mission. So they have a class desk. Somebody calls in from the fleet with a question about an airframes change or an avionics issue that doesn't seem quite right or whatever. I mean, so they're there to help the fleet personnel get their answers, get issues resolved, whatever it might be. So that's what it was. So the program office I went to was PMA 260, which was support equipment. Okay, so this office is fairly large, a lot of personnel in it, but the support equipment that they wanted me to oversee was for ordnance. So any of the test sets for ordnance, the Kraltz test set, OM-102, tester OM-103, and the ordnance equipment for transporting, testing ordnance and such. So the trailers that we use to haul the missiles out, the 191 skids up on the flight deck that we're hauling the AIM-9 around on, or those were all the things that I was responsible overseeing, all the parts for it, even though they were out there, basically anything in that regard. The test sets, are we running out? Do we need to do another procurement of those test sets? Do we need to upgrade them because the software is not there? Just on and on and on. Fortunately, had a great team, the engineers, the logisticians and such, that my team, they're working out of Lakehurst, New Jersey. So everybody knows pretty much where that is, and the blimp and so on and so forth. So they have a great team up in Lakehurst that supported us, the entire support equipment program office. So there was another officer or senior civilian that was in charge of the electronic gear. So those test sets, the cranes that we used on the ships, lift aircraft, that was part of our program office. The avionics benches to test all the boxes, that was part of our office. So it was just a massive, massive program office. And sorry for dragging out the conversation, Tim. That was my last tour in the Navy. So retired out of there in
Okay.
2008. I was there from '05 to '08, 28
Okay.
years. A lot of people ask me why I didn't do 30 years. I was 28 in a couple months. And honestly, the simple answer was there was no new challenge. I called up the detailer, says, I'm going to send you back to sea. You're going to go back and be an AIMD, assistant AIMD officer. I was lieutenant commander still. I was like, that's really not a challenge. I've already done AIMD. That's what I got for you. That's where you're going. I was like, looked it up, looked at retirement, the difference between staying 30 years, going back to sea, going back down to Oceania. The difference was $22 a month in retirement. I was like,
Wow.
it's not worth it to me. I'm done. You're not giving me a new challenge. I mean, it's what he had. I understood that, but I was just like, just getting tired. It's
Right.
just not something new. I'm just not excited about that. So,
Okay. Well, which tour stood out for you and for what reason?
VF-32, absolutely. Fallen in love with the F-14. The personnel there, Tim, yourself, Corey, the list could go on and on. Everybody there that helped shape me and my future and everything. Absolutely one of the best tours. Say a close second was VF-31 when I was the MMCO. And I'll tell you, Tim, one particular reason I chose VF-31, besides it was a lot less maintenance, was everything that I said to myself that if I ever get in charge, I will not do or I will do is what I could do in VF-31. So here's your first example was VF-31. I said, we will not have a day check and stay check. We will have a third shift. Our night check will leave after their 8 hours. That's just it, straight up.
Right.
And Master Chief Senior says, I don't know if we've got the personnel. I told Master Chief Senior, I said, we've got to carve it out. I want a skeleton crew here for that third shift. They can do, prep for the next morning's go. They can help each other out, but it can be 20 to 25 personnel. I said, I want a chief on it. Also, I said, we can put a first class on there to help them learn so that they can, when they put on chief and
right.
learn, how to be safe for flight and so on and so forth. So that was the big push, it was a growing piece, but we did it. We never had a day check, stay check. Always had 3 shifts while I was there. Things that I said, if I was in charge, I'm going to change. So that's what I did. I was happy to see that. I think for the troops, knowing that your set time to go home is when you're going home. There's not like you're getting home and you're seeing your kids head off to school for breakfast, after they ate their breakfast. It's just not working that way. So.
Right. That's awesome. All right. So out of all your tours and all the places you've been around the world, where's your favorite place?
There is a lot, Tim. You're absolutely right. Lots of deployments, lots of places. My favorite is Hobart, Tasmania. So that was West Coast deployment. Do Australia, Tasmania is a small island to the east of it. So we went to Hobart, Tasmania twice. I went in there twice on deployments. It was like no other place that I've been in. This is why I don't believe that they'd ever had a American aircraft carrier visit there, if I remember correctly. So we were the first one there. They had set up to where they had host families for anybody that wanted to be hosted coming off the ship. So it was basically a family that was going to host sailor or sailors to meals, to show them around Hobart, Tasmania, to take them to the opal mine so that they could experience that, to basically see their lifestyle there. It was absolutely incredible. Stepped off that ship, walk into a bar, you're wearing a uniform, you could not buy yourself a drink. Absolutely not. The amount of money you had in your pocket was what you were leaving with when you walked out. It was incredible. The people were so kind and generous. Lots of great ports, but that one will always stick out. You could walk down that pier, and there was a section where they had bulletin boards, okay? And somebody from that town would help you out. You could pick a family from that bulletin board to go be a part of it. It's like they just had a write-up. This was their name. This is what they were offering. You could experience this life, we can go here, whatever it might be. So you could select it, and
was there a language barrier?
No. So they spoke, Australian, normal English,
Okay.
with mostly the English or British accent to it. So, you could work past it pretty easily.
Okay.
So no, it went real well. Lots of great ports. Singapore, I enjoyed tremendously. The cleanest city I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
So clean. They don't even sell chewing gum in Singapore because they don't want you to spit it out on the street and they got to clean it. So we rolled in there into Singapore on cruise, during cruise, right after the U.S. citizen had endured the public caning
I remember
for
that.
vandalizing cars. You remember that?
Yep.
So we were told before we got off the ship, this being from the commanding officer, that if you get in trouble in Hong Kong, you're going to be part of Hong Kong for a while because they will not turn you back over to U.S. So if you get in trouble or you can't bail you out, we will see you whenever they release you. So, whether it's public caning, you could be part of that, whatever it might be. So just know that before you get off ship. No busting out windows, getting drunk and whatever it might be. So anyway, mind your P's keys. We left out there. Everybody did well. Nobody got left behind or.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Hong Kong, I enjoyed Hong Kong. It was probably my third, Tim. Just going into Hong Kong, the people, the lights. Always had a good time there. It was incredible. That was it.
Okay. I know you've touched on you were married. How many kids do you have?
So my first wife, we have 2 children, a daughter by my wife and I, and then I adopted her son, which was 5 at the time. His name is Jeremy. Shortly after we got married, and then my current wife, Anita, she has 1 daughter, and we have not had any children of our own together, and we'll stop that.
Yeah. All right. Where did you once you retired? Where'd you go?
All right, so you're going to like this little piece. So, as I said previously, I retired up in Pax River, Maryland, in 2008, 28 years. So I said, okay, what am I going to do now? So my wife and I talked, quite a bit. What's next? Where do I go? So on and so forth. So I decided that I'm going to stick around the Pax River area a little while longer. Okay, I said she wanted me to flip to be a federal employee. Okay, I'm retired Navy. Let me just flip to be a federal employee and start working the government employee side. Which Pax River does employ quite a few government employees, DC area, so on and so forth. We all know that. So it was kind of like, okay, what's the next career? So anyway, I spoke to a few companies out in town, besides, trying to get my resume together as far as putting it in for being a government employee, applying for a government job. So one of the companies that we used in that program office that I was in was Eagle Systems. So we used some of their personnel. They mostly hired personnel that were prior military, just finished up, retired, that they could use to fill whatever job various program offices needed, whether it was logistics, overseeing something, helping with project, it's creating spreadsheets, whatever it might be. So they hired usually senior enlisted personnel or officers. So that was their whole forte. So I went over to Eagle Systems. I was hired on there as a contractor for 9 months. I came back and I worked for the lieutenant commander that I hired to replace me. So here I am. I just did this guy's job, last month that I've hired in. So I know what he's supposed to be doing. So my program office or that program office enjoyed that tremendously. So there was no real skip or learning curve. I could teach him on the fly and also keep our program office going without any real issues. So did that for 9 months. I'd been interviewing for a government job for quite a bit. During that 9 months, I finally got accepted for a government job over in the metrology calibration area. It's a different program office across Pax River. So I was over there in the metrology calibration area or program office for 3 years. And then my old boss there at Support Equipment Program Office, PMA 260, he called me. He's a retired Navy captain. He called me. He says, "Hey, I'm getting ready to retire, like really retire." He says, "Do you want my job?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." He says, "I'm opening it up, put it out there. We're going to be interviewing for people, to take my job." And I said, "Okay." So he put it out there. They opened up the job on USA Jobs. I applied for it. Went through the interview and then got selected for his job. So now I was in charge of various people, senior military officers and senior government employees, GS-13s, so on and so forth. So trying to oversee, for us, Tim, you and I would call it a branch. It was just various people, a branch that we were in charge of. So I had people that were in charge of basically the avionics armament portion of support equipment. So that's what we oversaw. So lots of different individual programs or equipment. It was just incredible the amount of equipment that we had and oversee. I mean, those 191 skids, you remember that we would move missiles up on the flight deck and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 4,100 of those skids out in the fleet between shore duty installations and ships and everything else. 4,100 of those skids that we were responsible for keeping track of and doing upgrades to and so on and so forth. If somebody lost one over the side or bent or broke it or snapped it in half, they got to be replaced too. Oh yeah, and keep parts on the shelf for. So I guess it's kind of like a car manufacturer, car dealership in that regard. Got to keep parts on the shelf. So Tim, your point. So I took over as my old boss's job there, and I was there for quite a while. 2015, I left there. I was searching for a new job down in the Pensacola area, which is where I reside now. Anita and I wanted to get back in the Pensacola area or a small circumference from there. So between Panama City to New Orleans, Louisiana is kind of just the semicircle that we wanted to encompass. Need to get somewhere down there. Our kids were down there. Our grandkids were down there. Anita is a Pensacola native, so that snow up there in Maryland was not appealing to her. Me being a Colorado boy, I enjoyed it, but hey, so she says the only thing white that she wanted to see was the beach, so that was it. So we're moving. Got a job down here in Pensacola, still working for another program office out of Pax River, but it was a joint program led by the Air Force down here at Eglin Air Force Base. So we were part of that program. So, we had the Air Force leading the way. There was ourselves, and then there was also a group called FMS, Foreign Military Sales, that had 30 different countries that wanted to procure this same munition. So as my job, I was responsible for overseeing the procurement for the Navy and the Marine Corps, made sure that we got our share of procurements, fought for the money, the budget, logistics, do we have parts, and then reporting up to our program officer, both up in Pax River and also up in the Pentagon. So our sponsor, make sure we're doing what we're supposed to. So that's where we ended up, Tim, down here in Pensacola. Finished
And
out
you,
there. Yeah, I
and you,
retired here in January. Yeah.
yeah. All right. You keep in contact with a bunch of your fellow service members since you've retired?
Probably not as well as I should, Tim. I mean, you and I have talked about numerous things that we still need to do. Corey and I talk somewhat. Keith Hulbert and I do. McClatchy. Um, not as much as I'd like to, and that's really on me. I mean, we're all busy, we know that, but yeah, as much as I can. Reunions, definitely. I enjoy our reunions.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Did you and Master Chief Hobart ever cross paths again on any of your tours?
Let me think about that one. He was with Fighter Wing for a while. He was with VF-32 as senior chief. He was with Fighter Wing, and I was with VF-14. So he came over, did our inspections. I mean, that was it, but we were never in the same command at all or anything like that. So
Okay.
he didn't cut me any breaks, that's for darn sure, for knowing him. So no special treatment.
Right. Yeah. You know, I left the service out of VF-32 and went back in probably a year and a half, 2 years, almost 2 years later. I went back in, and I was stationed in Pensacola, and at the Fleet Readiness Action Group at the FRAG, and I hadn't been there long, and I think it was the commander, our office commander, goes, "Hey, Prater, you got a call on line such and such," and it was Master Chief Hulbert. He done figured out that I was back in the service, and he's like, "Hey, I'll get orders cut tomorrow, and you can come back up here." And I'm like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah.
That's
All
funny.
right. So, what advice would you give to the young people today about the military?
So I recently gave this advice, but yeah, we can talk about that in a minute. But about the military, so coming in as enlisted, E1 to E3, you really only need to follow just a few simple rules. And I hate to put it so bluntly, it's, do what you're told, listen more than you talk, be where you're supposed to be on time. In fact, you should be there 15 minutes early. And that's
Right.
really it for E1 to E3. I mean, it's the three simple rules that you truly need to follow. Once you go above that, you start getting a petty officer, so then it changes a little bit. But it's a foundation for really what you should be doing. Okay, it's the only way you're going to learn is, doing what you're supposed to be doing, listening well, it works for quite a few folks. I truly wish that a lot of our younger folks would join the military. I think it's a great bridge. If you're in that stuck, it's like, okay, I graduated high school. I'm not sure that I want to go to college because I'm tired of school. I'm tired of all the homework. I'm tired of this or that or whatever it might be. And you're just not quite sure what you want to do yet. I think it's a great bridge. Join the military, figure it out from there. Let you experience a few career options. You can actually change rates while you're in the military. You don't want to be a corpsman anymore. You want to be, I don't know, an ordnanceman. Okay, fine. Go ahead and change the rate, apply for it. But you can see what other people are doing and go from there. And, maybe it is something that you want to pursue once you get out of the military. So I think it's a great bridge. And I wish a lot of other young folks actually did it, used it.
Okay. What was, or let's see, do you have any other family members that are currently serving?
So that was the one we're going to talk about. So my grandson, we have six grandsons. So the oldest grandson just finished uh, Army boot camp. So he just finished that. He's up at Army Individual Training. It's called AIT. That's his A school. It's up in Richmond, Virginia. So that's where he's at. So he's got till the first week in February to finish up, February 26th. And then I guess here in a few weeks, we'll figure out where he's going to be stationed. So that's what he's doing. My son from the first marriage, Jeremy, he went into the Navy. He was an AMS. So, and he retired as chief petty officer from the
That's
Navy.
awesome.
So he was part of Helo squadrons, HM. So
Okay.
H-53s we call him. So.
All right. All right. So here's one, and just keep in mind that we're going to be worldwide. This can be seen worldwide. But what was the most hilarious moment that you had in military while you were serving?
I thought about this one a lot, Tim, and I was like, let's see if we can actually keep this kind of clean. So there's one that was not funny at the time, but it's kind of funny now. Um, so one of them that I thought was actually pretty funny was there was a time when we were in 32 that you may or may not remember this, where if you went up to the AA shop, they would actually hook up a maker to the doorknob, and they would zap you, if they knew you were coming, or they'd hear you coming down the hallway or whatever it might be. So they'd go ahead and ramp up the maker. And as soon as you touch it, it'd zap you. So anyway, I was aware of this, and so I was headed to the AA shop, and they knew that I was coming because I wanted to go up and talk to Hardcastle, A1 Hardcastle. So I went up there. So they had set up. Well, on my way there, I ran into, then Senior Chief Hulbert coming down the passageway, and he was headed to the A shop too. So anyway, we're headed there, and he touched the doorknob instead of me, and they didn't realize he came through there like his tail was on fire, and I was just busting, got laughing. They were laughing for probably a second until they realized who they had gotten. But anyway, so,
I can imagine.
I bet. Other than that, Tim, I mean, we get new guys on the ship or in the squadrons, we're sending them around to look for prop wash and pad eye removal tools and so on and so forth. I mean, I always thought that was funny, and I thought it was a great experience for a lot of our new guys to get to know the ship, how to get around the ship, see some of the other departments. Even though they were gone for various hours, as well as I do, we'll always get it, back from them. But just for them to be able to do it. And so the story that wasn't funny at the time, because it was me, but is funny now, was during that deployment. I don't know if you were on this cruise. I think you were on this cruise, Tim, but you may remember. So there was a night with Senior Chief Hulbert where one of the discrepancies for one of our aircraft was we had a leaking spoiler actuator. And so the discrepancy was it was the number 4 spoiler actuator on aircraft 203. Okay, so on and so forth. So anyway, I'm running shop, go and pass down everything, so on and so forth, assign a crew. So assign the crew to go ahead and change the spoiler actuator, go ahead and go up and do it. Okay, about halfway through, it's been an hour. I'm like, night check. I said, let me go up here and see what's going on, go up to the aircraft, look up on the back of the aircraft. There ain't nobody there. I'm like, where the heck are these guys at? Come back down the shop. I'm like, looking all around, where are they? Come to find out, they had changed the number 3 spoiler actuator on aircraft 204. So they changed a spoiler actuator on an up aircraft, unbeknownst to anybody. Okay. And I'm in charge of the crew, causing another functional check flight while we're on deployment or on a workup, and didn't fix the aircraft that was broke, that still needs fixed. So now I got 2 aircraft. So me going and telling Senior Chief Hulbert that, and believe me, I had my back as close to that bulkhead as I could out of his grasp. I told him I just downed another one of his aircraft and it requires a functional check flight in the morning. So not one, but two.
Wow.
He hollered. I said, all I did was listen. I knew it was coming, the full blast. I said, I understand. Let me get back downstairs. We'll get this wrapped up and get you the paperwork. So not funny then, definitely funny now. But,
Oh yeah. All right. I'm gonna give you the floor. Anything that you want to talk about? Um, that
Go ahead, Tim.
that you want to mention specifically about anything that you did?
Um, just a couple of quick notes. So during my 28 years, working my way up from an E1 up to an LDO, lieutenant commander, did a lot of things, had a lot of support, but there was nothing that I achieved that was solely on my own. Always my crew, my teams, the people I worked with, a lot of support. Tim, yourself, all the personnel that I engaged with. That is who I owe it all to. It wasn't just me or just me alone. So everybody did great. Did I have issues with some people and not other? Of course. So everybody can't get along, but I found that I can never thank everybody enough. So I do appreciate that. See, I think the couple last pieces was I did pursue my college degree while I was still serving. I got my college degree in 2007, right before I retired. So did it all through testing and online courses and online, doing my papers and so on and so forth. So it can still be done long after I finished high school. We didn't have enough money to go to college. That wasn't part of us for us 4 kids. But I did want to get my bachelor's degree. And so I did get it while I was in the military right before I retired. And it did help me in my in my federal employee life after I did retire in that regard. So it helped in that regard. So John Tresina, I know I've mentioned him earlier. One quick note for him. So even though I've told him before that I apologize, but I still probably owe him another apology. So VF-31, if anybody recognizes the aircraft with the black fins on it, with the NK on the inside of the vertical fins and the rainbow swish on the tails, that was our bird. So we painted that. I was in charge of the MMCO in Oceana, and we painted those tails over a Christmas break, purposely over a Christmas break. And I had forgotten to tell John that we had done that. Well, John was taking the New Year's period while I was out of the office for the holidays for New Year's. So Christmas I was in, John was on leave. New Year's I was out and John was manning the show. So Strike Fighter Wing got wind that we had painted the tails black, and they went crazy, according to John. He got caught off guard that we had done it, that we had painted the tails black. It was the CAG's bird. It was against the paint scheme, so on and so forth. But anyway, they resigned that we could keep them black. Okay. We went back and forth, back and forth. The CO liked them. It was a CAG's bird. So if we agreed to repaint them right before we went on cruise for, of course, obvious reasons, which we did. So that was ours. The NK on the inside of the vertical fins was different. It really didn't fit on the outside of the vertical fins. The only requirement for that marking was it had to be on the vertical fin. Didn't say whether it was on the inside or the outside. So the corrosion control shop, we put it on the inside. It was different. I think it worked out okay. I guess, Tim, one last piece is Scott Derrick, may or may not know, was my brother-in-law. So he married my sister. They had a couple children. So always appreciate him. Last, I think, note was, I know we see, the F-14 retired. The retirement ceremony for the F-14 up at Pax River, Maryland, up at NavAir, since the program office was there, we had a bird there, was incredible. Well over 500 people attended coming down from DC, you know, people that had flown it, people that had maintained it. It was just incredible in hangar. Lots of great guest speakers, people that were, you know, COs when you and I were there were admirals coming down from, you know, DC now or driving up from Oceana. So that retirement ceremony, you know, from that program office. So that was it, Tim. It was definitely an event that you could shed a tear.
Okay. Yeah. I would have liked to have been able to attend that myself. All right, I got one last question. Would you do it again?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. I have no regrets. Um, as said, I would do it again. Not my current body and current age, but yeah, you know, not knowing what was going to happen, coming from Colorado, about as far from saltwater as you could get, uh, but you know, not knowing how it was going to go. But yeah, I was fortunate. Worked with great people, so I would do it again. What about yourself, Tim?
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
Um, you know, Master Chief Hobart, some people loved him, some people hated him. Uh, for me, the best thing for me when I got out was the work ethic. And I was like, if you can work for Master Chief Hobart, you can work anywhere.
that's the truth right there.
And you know, you'd have folks in the civilian world complaining. I'm like, you don't have a clue. you, you don't have a clue.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. That work ethic was something else. Yep.
All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank you for coming on. It was an amazing story. I really appreciate it. Um, Dalyn and I stay in touch some. I hope to retire here soon, and me and Dalyn can hang out some in Pensacola.
Absolutely.
Um, but I want to thank everyone for watching. We'll be posting several episodes in January. So remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And I appreciate it. Thank you for watching.